Hi, and welcome to this video. In this one, what we're going to do is talk about different levels of census geography, how the census divides people up into different regional areas. Hi, I'm Berkey Academy, and this is my GIS series. And if you want to go to spatial.berkeyacademy.com, let me just show you very quickly. I have links to everything that we're doing, so make it very easy for you. We're using a free GIS program called Map Window. All the maps and everything else we're going to be using is absolutely free. So if you want to follow along, download the Map Window program, download the US map that we're using here, and sometimes we'll use a world map. Everything's free. You'll download a lot of zip files that you'll need to unzip, so you can download the free 7-zip program to help you out. And today what we're going to be doing is looking at Census Tracts. Everybody's heard of Census Tracts, but people don't really know what they are. You've probably never seen one. So we're going to look at Census Tracts and other census geographies like blocks, block groups, ZCTAs, which are zip code tabulation areas. These are like zip codes, but not exactly identical to zip codes. But it's where the Census Bureau tries as best they can to group all the people in a certain zip code together. But it's not perfect. It's pretty close, though. It's a pretty useful way to look at data sometimes. And we're also going to look at much more, things like counties, micropolitan areas, and metropolitan areas as well, micropolitan or small areas. And we're going to show you where to download all of these free shape files that you can use with a mapping program. So kind of cool. Let's get started. Let me bring up a map we've been using from previous videos here, where we have taken the states and made a choropleth map with different colors for different median income levels here. Let me show you the site where you can download all these files, and I've already done all this right here. Go to the link on spatial.berkeyacademy.com. Let me show you right here. Here's the link, Census 2010 SHP download page right here. This is video GIS 4, Census Geographies. You can easily get to this page if you just Google 2010 Census Tiger Line Shapefiles, or click the link on my page, either one. Then you want to click on Download Shapefiles. As I said, I've already downloaded all these, but let me just give you a sense of where we're going here and some of the things that are available. American Indian reservations, where are they? What are the boundaries? You can download those here. Blocks are very small areas, the smallest census region. Block groups are groups of blocks. Tracts are groups of block groups, and we'll look at all these and how they relate to each other. You can also get the congressional districts, which is kind of cool. Lists of cities, counties, county subdivisions, places, even school districts, which is nice. States, so nice state maps. State legislative districts, like House and Senate districts. Urban areas, urban growth areas, which I think only applies to a couple of states. But download these, try them out. Voting districts, which is nice. These ZCTAs I was talking about. You can also download landmarks, road, rail lines, all lines here, which includes lots of things such as ski lifts are on some of these maps. Interesting things you can find. Also, landmarks. Some of these files have some schools, not all schools, but some schools, graveyards, other kinds of random landmarks that are interesting. Military installations, water features, such as lakes and rivers. Just download these and unzip them, add them to the map, see what happens. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Let's just download one of these at random. I've already downloaded about 20 of these things. But for example, if you wanted the tracts, click Tracts, of course, Submit, and then you can click on what state. Now, you can choose. You have to choose between 2010 or 2000 tracts. Keep in mind that these census tract shapes and block and all these other ones change from census to census. It makes it very frustrating when you're analyzing data because many times it's difficult or impossible to compare regions because the regions change all the time. So even counties, believe it or not, between censuses, counties change. Sometimes it's just a name change, like Dade County in Florida changed their name to Miami-Dade County. That's not too important, but also some counties disappear. In Virginia, there are independent cities in addition to counties, and sometimes the independent cities will merge with a county. Makes it hard, not impossible, but very difficult to compare areas. So these areas do change, so you have to choose. Let's choose a state. Now we're going to be focusing on North Carolina because that's where I live. Submit. And sometimes you have the option of downloading all of the counties in one file. When you have that option, that's what I've done. When you don't have that option, I'm just downloading one county personally, and that's Guilford County, the county where I live. But download areas for your own place where you live so that you can get a feel for what these look like. So once you download them, you're going to be downloading a zip file, .zip, and that's where you need that program if you're not familiar with it. There are a lot of them, but 7-zip is a free one that you can use. And if you want an easy download link right here, link to download 7-zip, all free, no problem. So download a bunch of these files and then either watch or play along with me. Now here's the map we've been using. Let me just start opening some of these files up. So let's go to add, the little green plus sign here. And let's start by adding the counties. You might want a county map for some reason. So when you open it up, you'll just see the shape file, SHP, but there are other files in this folder that have to be moved along with this. So you can't just email yourself the SHP file. It won't work that way. You have to have the whole group of files. So let's add the counties in North Carolina. So let me zoom in here, click the plus sign, and draw a box around North Carolina to zoom in. Now let me show you what I did before I actually, let me undo what I did. I wanted the counties to be very large and hollow. If you want to change the way a shape looks, click on the little description below the layer there. So we just added that. And what it used to look like was this. It had show fill clicked, and the width of the line was very thin, and the line was gray, something like this. So here's what it used to look like. What I wanted to do is make the counties hollow so we could see through them. Why? Well, let's add some more shapes, and then I'll show you why. Let's add another layer, and then we'll redo it so you can see what I did. Let's add Cal Sub 10. These are county subdivisions. What are they? I don't know. Let's just add them and let's see what they look like. Okay, can't really tell. So how do we figure out what that did? Well, let's go back and redo what I did to the counties. Click on the little county block there. Let's not show the fill. Let's change the color to something very dark black here and make it wider. Apply. And let's unclick show fill, apply. And let's move it on top. That way we can see the counties are the very dark things, and the county subdivisions are just these little things inside. What are they good for? I'm not sure, but it looks like they're just subdivisions of the counties. Self-evident. Okay, let's add some other things. Let's get rid of the county subdivisions. Let's add some census tracts here to see what they look like. Plus, go back to our main folder. Tract 10. So this name here, this is TL for Tiger Line, 2010 census. 37 is the FIPS code, Standard Identification Code for Census Tracts 10 for 2010. Let's add, what do census tracts look like? Let's move the counties back on top so we can get a feel for what they look like. In North Carolina, there are 100 counties. How many census tracts are there, I wonder? Let's look. Right-click on the tract, go to Attribute Table Editor, and down here on the very bottom, you see 0 of 2195 selected. That tells us that there are about 2,200 census tracts in North Carolina. Let's also see what data is available here from this census file about the tracts. This is the FIPS code telling us that the tract is in North Carolina. The county number is 153 for that census tract. And the tract ID is 970-100 for a particular tract. Which tract is this? Click here on the left side to highlight it. Let's move this out of the way. And it turned yellow. All right, so you can do this either way. You can either click on something in the list and it will highlight it on the map. Let's zoom out so that we can see that. So some of these are probably so small we're not seeing them. There's one right there. Now you can also, if you can't find what you're clicking on over here, if you can't find it, then you can go to, let's see, where is that option? View, I think there's going to be zoom to selected. Here's the option I was looking at. This little magnifying glass and the word selected, click that, and that zooms way into the thing that we have selected there. And then we can zoom back out so that we can kind of see where it is and get a little bit of perspective here. All right, so no problem. Now let's see what other things are here. It tells us the area of the land in that census tract. This is probably in square meters, but we'd need to look up and see what units these are using. Area of the water area in there. Confusingly, there is no population listed. That's somewhat upsetting. But we do have an internal point, kind of the center point of the census tract, the latitude and longitude. And again, the latitude is the north-south, and the longitude is the east-west point here. Okay, so these are what census tracts look like, and there are about 2,200 of them. And what that means is, for a state like North Carolina, there's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 people on average per census tract, although some have much more than 5,000, some have much less than 5,000 people. Okay, so let's look at some other census geographies. Let's zoom in to Guilford County, where I live. That's this county right here. It's kind of a rectangular county. Here we have smaller block groups where Greensboro, the main city, is. About 300,000 or so people in Greensboro, depending on how you measure it. Down here is another city called High Point, and you see that where the city is, the block groups are smaller. Where population is denser, they make the tracts smaller to try to get around 5,000-ish people in there. Out in the county, the tracts are bigger where there are rural areas. Let's look at, so that's a census tract. Let's look at another geography here. Let's add. Let's look at a block group. Let's go. Okay, here it is up here, BG10 for block group. Let's add that to the map. And again, you want to be able to have some sort of way to easily compare the block groups to everything else we did. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make the tracts hollow so that we can see through them. So I'm going to unclick Show Fill. I'm going to make the color of the outline, let's say red, and make it the outline a little bit wide enough so that we can see it. And now I'm going to add this on top of the block groups. And now let me drag the county to be on top of that. So now what that lets us do is see how large a county is. The red are the tracts, and then the block groups are the small gray things. So let's zoom in even a little bit more. This little gray line tells us where the block groups are. So you can see for each tract, like in this tract right here, it looks like there are only 2 block groups in that tract. In this tract, there's 1, 2, 3. And that's what I've seen before, is that each census tract is divided into somewhere between 2 and maybe 5, usually, block groups. Now, if a tract is divided into block groups, what are block groups divided into? Blocks, of course. So let's see if I have the blocks here. Let's see. These naming conventions that they use here. Here's tab block. Let's see if that's what it is that we're interested in. These might be the blocks. Let's see. Let's make, again, do the same kind of thing we did before. Let's make the block groups hollow. Don't show the fill. Let's make the line color maybe blue. Okay, and let's make it a little bit wider here so that we can see it. And then let's drag it on top of those blocks. And let's see what we have here. Let's zoom way in so we can get a feeling for what's going on. All right, let me reorder these. So let me put the tracts right here on the very top. All right, and then the counties on the very top of that. So what can we see now? Well, we can see the black county outline. We can see the red tracts, which are divided by the blue lines into block groups, and then these little shapes here I think are blocks. Let me verify that real quickly. So in order to verify this, if you're ever confused about what it is that you're looking at, always try right-clicking on the little file. So this tab block, right-click on it and go to View Metadata. Sometimes there will be some helpful data. And here's a jumbled mess of information. So let's try to format it a little bit so we can read it a little more easily. Format word wrap will make sure that the lines aren't too long for us to read it. And let's see, we can also change the font to make it a little bit bigger here. It might make it a little bit easier to read. So there are a lot of little codes here to dig through, but it says that this is Tiger Line Shapefile 2010, North Carolina, 2010 Census Blocks. And this is the state-based file. So we indeed are looking at the blocks. And so again, the tract is larger, and then the block group are slightly smaller, and then the blocks can be quite small. And again, a block gets smaller is if it's in a very densely populated area, and it's going to be larger if it's a more rural kind of area. Let's look and see what information is included here. Let's see, attribute table editor. I'm just curious, and then I'll move it along for the additional ones that we look at here. We have quite a few layers open, so map window is starting to slow down a bit here. All right, so here we have the state FIPS, the county code, the tract code, and the block code here. And let's see, area land, area water, and again, they don't have any information about the population there. So that's a bit disappointing that the census doesn't have that in there. I'll ask some people at the census about this and see what kind of response I get. So let's close that. Let's see what other kind of files we got. And let's close some of these so that we don't tax our resources too much. And let's see what other little files I downloaded here, free from the Census Bureau. But let's zoom out a little bit here. We also got congressional districts and voting districts and things like this, and I just want to take a quick look and see what some of those look like. Let's see, county places, tracts, water edges. Here's some information about bodies of water, and that one you had to download at the county level. So here are some rivers, it appears. Kind of interesting. Let's see what else we have here real quickly. Let me look at the documentation so I can tell you what we're looking at. Well, here's VTD. Those are voting districts. Let's see what the voting districts look like. Okay, so that would be very interesting. And before I go any further, let me show you a little graphic about how these areas relate to each other. This is a little picture from the Census Bureau here that tells us about how the different areas of the nation in the United States are divided up. So you have the entire nation, which is divided into regions, such as the Northeast and the Southeast, and then divisions, and then states. And then the nation is also divided into zip code tabulation areas. States are divided into counties, which are divided into tracts, which are divided into block groups, which are divided into blocks. The nation is divided into zip code tabulation areas, which are also divided into blocks. So what the census does is take blocks and aggregate them into zip code tabulation areas. Not perfect match, as I mentioned before, with zip codes. However, zip codes and zip code tabulation areas do cross county boundaries. And so that's why zip codes aren't underneath counties or underneath states. Zip codes can do funny things sometimes. We also divide the nation into urban areas and non-urban areas. And there are also micropolitan and metropolitan areas. We also have school districts. Let me open up some school districts and congressional districts here real quickly. Okay, so let's see. And let's look at the congressional districts. And so here, this file, CD 111, each Congress is going to have its own Congress number. So it's either the 108th Congress, 109th Congress, etc. This is the 111th Congress here. And we can view those congressional districts here. Let me zoom out a little bit. And these congressional districts do cut through county boundaries. So let me turn off the counties. So here we can see North Carolina's congressional districts and what those look like. And one complaint of some in North Carolina are some of these congressional districts that are very long and skinny and travel long distances throughout the state. We also have here, let's see, we can look at lakes and things. So let me zoom in, and then we'll end this video in just a second. Let me turn off those congressional districts so we can see the lakes that are in the county that I live in. And the lakes here are these little purple areas. So this is Lake Townsend up here. And you can see all these other little tiny ponds that are everywhere throughout the county. So I encourage you to download and play with these things, and hopefully now at the end of this video you have an idea of what census tracts and blocks and block groups are. Just one more note. When you're trying to learn information about people, it used to be, back in the 2000 census, that you could learn information about people down to the block group level, about race and income and commuting patterns and things like that. That's for the year 2000 census. You could get down to these fine little neighborhoods and get a pretty good idea about things like income and education and all these other things. Beginning with the Census 2010, you can't do that anymore. The finest level of geography that you can really learn much about people is that county level, not the census block group or even tract level anymore. You can only really learn about people at the much larger county level, and even then, all of our information about education, income, and things like that comes from surveys of small numbers of people. And so the information even at the county level isn't very precise. They're estimates based on smaller numbers of people. And so we've really lost the ability to learn a lot of interesting information at the small neighborhood level like we used to be able to with these census block groups. Now we're just at the county level, and that's due to budget cuts and also some changes in policy at the Census Bureau. So as always, if you have any questions or if you have any problems doing this, feel free to contact me. Go to spatial.berkeyacademy.com. I'll have my contact information there. Again, I'm not a GIS expert. I use it a lot in my research, and if I can help you, I will. But if it's a very technical question, I'm probably not going to be your person. But anyway, good luck learning and using GIS in your own projects. I hope you learned something from this video.